without further ado, I am delighted to introduce Lisa Hastings. Lisa, welcome to Freelance Legends.
Hi, Oliver. What a beautiful welcome. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to share my screen as well because I've got some pretty little slides that I'd like to talk through.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, before you start, do you want to perhaps just give a quick introduction and maybe let everybody know a little bit about you and, you know, how you've got to be talking to us today and all the exciting things you've done in your career?
Think a little bit who is a bit of Freelance Legends. So, and I was actually a creative director to Jeremy, and that's how I know him. So I'm Lisa. I'm a global creative director and also a brand strategist. So basically, for the last 20 years of my career, I've worked in agencies. I've worked in brand agencies, design agencies, and I even started off in advertising. And obviously, you can tell from the accent I'm from the UK originally. I've been out here 10 years, and I've also lived in China. And I just made the switch about a year ago to kind of start my own business, which allows me to work directly with entrepreneurs, with startups, with independents, to kind of do brand strategy and bring whatever they have to the table to find out who they are. And kind of bring that out and stand out in a crowd in the world. And you've got me on a really buzzy week this week because I presented a brand strategy to a client of mine in the protein space yesterday, and they've decided to do a full rebrand on the back of it. So you've got me on a really brave, excited day.
Oh, that's great to hear. Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, can I share my screen? And
yeah, please do. Go for it. And maybe, I'll let you just introduce the topic and I'll let you carry it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Oliver. And I guess you can ask, who am I to talk about bravery? Well, like I wouldn't consider myself brave, but actually most people have said to me that the decisions that I've made have made me they're pretty risky. Most people say that, well, you live the other side of the world and, you know, you're doing your thing. And I don't consider that brave. Let me just screen share. But apparently it is one of my core values as well. So here we go. So hopefully you can see the slides now. Going to just check in with the boss there.
Yeah, that's fine. Looks good. I think everybody can see.
Awesome. So yes, like I said, I'm Lisa. I'm a global creative director and strategist. And my details are there if you ever want to get in touch with me. And I think that bravery for me has always been about opportunity. So I used to be a shy little kid from Nottingham in the UK. And kind of most of my life, I was determined to do certain things that people told me I couldn't. People told me if you're a one-parent family, you can't go to the university. If you're from this area, you can't do what you want to do. Art even and creative things weren't really a considered thing at the time. But I am someone who, once I get an idea in my head, I chase it, I grab it and run with it. And that's what I've done throughout probably everything that I've kind of done through my career. So if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat box. So like I said, I work with brands, I work with businesses, and I work with individuals to define and differentiate them. I've had over 20 years in the brand space and design space from the UK. I did 10 years in London. Then I kind of quit what was a full-time job of 5 years at the time to come over here to Sydney. Took a bit of a risk in that one. I didn't have a job or anything. I just came out here and I fell in love with it. And then whilst I've been in Sydney after 5 years, I went to work in Shanghai as well. So I've also worked in China. And I've worked with clients. I went back to the UK recently and did 2 years working there, heading up an agency and working with clients in the USA and Europe. And so I've got a really loud banging in the background, so I apologize. So yeah, I set up my own business last year because I really believe that there are so many people out there who don't have the opportunity to kind of, you can't use a big brand agency to empower your brands. And now's a great time, especially on the back end of a pandemic, to do it. And I love it. I love working with people. I love working with you to define like core values or what you've got, like kind of what your purpose is, your who, your what, and your why. I do a podcast as well, and that was also me breaking out of my own, like I don't like speaking live, doing things like this because I'm really nervous and I get really scared, but you know what? Not that scary. The more you do it, the more practice, the better you get. So I'm going to start with what a year, because the world has been closed, which is probably maybe even why some of you are on here because you've started your own business. I made the pivot into having my own business before the pandemic. But obviously it's just been like, what a year. Some people are having to start up their own businesses, find their side hustles. We're completely having to rethink everything that we've ever done. And why we need it more than ever. This is something that I talk to a lot of my creative clients about, and just anyone, to be honest, because at the start of this whole pandemic, we were talking a lot about people wanting to realize, like, what am I here for? We had a lot more time. We were working from home. And so rethinking what we were good at, kind of what was our value to the world, because the world as we knew it was changing. And I talk a lot about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and our needs have been flipped. So it's more about survival needs and safety needs. Whereas at the beginning, it was more about, okay, like, what am I here for? What is my point? What is my purpose? Do I just sit in a room?
Lisa, just for those that may not know, could you just quickly explain Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, of course. So it's a psychology-based triangle from many years ago, and it's based on that you need these 5 things. They're actually defined now. They've broken it down to 9. But there are 5 need states as humans that we are required to kind of satisfy. And it starts at the bottom of a triangle, and as you get nearer the top, they're the ones that as you move through, you have to have the base solid before you move near the top. So you've got your psychological needs, and then you've got things like safety needs. So you've got financial needs. You need a place to live, you need a place to sleep, you need a place to stay. You've got safety and security of the world around you, crime, like we're not in a war-torn country. We're very lucky here, especially at the moment. And then as you move further up the triangle, you've got different sort of psychological needs. So you've got your as you move to the top, even at the start of the pandemic, like I said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs means you have to have a base to be able to reach the top. The top is a self-actualization. What am I here for? Simon Sinek talks a lot about your who, your what, and your why. And this, at the start of it, I think a lot of people were questioning that because we were having so many restrictions based on we can't go anywhere. We had governmental restrictions, and most people were saying, okay, so what can I control? And the things of I can, work on your own business or your side hustle, or you can help other people. Whereas as the pandemic's gone on, what we've done is the hierarchy of needs, we've gone straight back to the base because a lot of us are feeling unsafe and insecure. Like I said, we're very lucky here, but when we look to other countries, especially when we look to Europe or South America and things like that, and how as a country they're falling apart, there are things outside of our control, but we need them. And so I think as a business, as a brand, you as a person, the way you serve those needs has completely changed. We were probably more about what are we putting out into the world, and actually what we're starting to think about a lot more now is community, connection. They're all the things that we need at the base of that triangle, and they've been lost. So we've actually been forced to move back to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So ultimately, now is a great time to think about what you need, what your goals are, what do you stand for? And that's one of the things that as I talk a bit further down, I'll talk about how to embrace bravery, is knowing what you stand for. Connection is huge right now. We're all connecting online, but what about the people who aren't in a digital space? How do we help them? How do we reposition ourselves so that we're of a need to others, not just satisfying our own kind of space in life? Okay, so we're going to move. I'm going to talk a bit about what bravery is, because obviously we won't go on. I know it seems a bit of a fluff topic, and everyone at the minute is going, now is the time to be brave. We want to be a hero. We want to be Nike. We want to empower people. But actually, there's some really fantastic podcasts out there called Accidental Creative was one that's done a great series on bravery, and I recommend you check that out. But bravery is doing the right thing even when it feels uncomfortable. So this is a really nice definition that I like to think about, because like I said, I'm on here to talk about bravery. I don't necessarily consider myself brave. But by definition, I have core values, and I like to think that I push towards them to take the right choice, and it's not always been the easiest. So bravery, if you look in the dictionary definition, it's about facing danger. It's about showing courage and having feel the fear and do it anyway, I suppose, but not because you want, not just because, well, I'm just going to feel the fear and that adrenaline rush when you jump out the plane. It's actually because it's the right thing to do. And then in terms of risk, we had a bit of a discussion I co-host a podcast called Shelf Impactors. We had a really nice discussion in just 2 episodes ago about bravery and risk. And actually, if you're not going to lose anything, is it really a risk? Because you've got nothing to lose. And that's where a lot of people are right now. You kind of go, well, I've got to do something. But then I think there's a way you can embrace bravery and courage in terms of actually think about that risk and what it means, not just, well, I've got to do something and doing it for the sake of it. I think bravery and risk are intertwined, but courage comes into it a whole lot bigger. Bravery is going at it, courage is seeing it through. And so resilience and grit are something that if you're in a creative industry, and I'm sure there are a lot of people on here that are, you're always thinking different. You're taught to think differently. But then actually seeing it through is probably the bit for me that considers brave. And in terms of my own life path, I took an opportunity in China, and this is, I suppose, where I talk about whether or not I take risks. I was offered an opportunity to go and work in China. I'd never been to China. I'd been doing design work and branding for China from Australia, and a great design agency said, come and work with us in China. And I'd never been. And I was a bit apprehensive, but I just said to myself, well, look, if I can sublet my apartment, then I'll do it. Why not? I don't have a reason not to. I was freelancing at the time, so I didn't really have a reason to say no. Within 24 hours, I was booking flights to China. So I'm not necessarily brave. I make a decision, a snap decision, And if it feels right, I'm a big believer in trusting your gut as well. And so if something feels like you should try it, that means so much more than regret down the line of not trying it. China was not so great for me. It made me very sick, but it was a great opportunity. And after 3 weeks into China, I was really sick. And I was struggling to get out of bed at some times in the day. Like I had an autoimmune condition develop and like I lost 10 kilos in weight. So it was a really challenging time, but I was just determined to see it through. So whether or not that was the right thing, it's now led to me being able to work with clients in China and clients in Asia because I understand the market there. So at the time, what feels like this is a bit of a risk or this is a bit of bravery actually does lead, that's opened up a huge amount of opportunity for me. I prefer this definition. So bravery is innovation in action. So it's just thinking different. Like bravery is not just one big, I want to take on the world, it's small acts. I'm a big believer in every kind of little decision that differs or that pushes you nearer towards your goal, and you'll all have business goals, then I think that's a great way to kind of say, look, it's innovation, like it's thinking different. We're all stuck in a place at the moment where we're considering what the new normal is. And actually, when you think about when they were back in, when there was world wars and things, they didn't say, well, this is how it is now. They said, this is going to end. We're going to get through it. There are different solutions on the outside of that. And so although we're all stuck in paralysis state at the moment, we're all sort of adapting to a new norm when really we should be thinking about how we champion forward and how we go back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of people need connection, people need security and safety. In this new world that we're living in, how do we satisfy those? We're problem solvers. We're in the best position because we're not part of a big corporation. How do we help people? And in terms of unlocking opportunity, yeah, like I said, like China for me was even taking the risk of, like, it was a big deal for me after 10 years in London to quit my job of 5 years and go, I'm going to give Australia a go, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten a visa at the time. It was a now or never, otherwise you're too old unless you've got a job. And it was the best thing I ever did. Like I gave up certain things, like obviously I left behind my family, and initially I came out for a year and that turned into like 6 years to start off with. And so at the time it was a huge risk. I don't consider it brave. Like I know we're talking about brave, but I consider that more just I'm stagnant or I'm not sure about where I am, and there's an opportunity here to change it.
Lisa, I think perhaps hearing you come back to that point several times, I think a point worth making is that brave is very subjective.
It really is.
Right. So, for one person, doing something, if, somebody has agoraphobia,
yeah,
or something, just stepping outside the front door could be an incredibly brave thing to do.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, it doesn't, we don't even give it a second thought. So I think, you sort of I hear you keep coming back to try and justify whether or not, what you've done is brave. Clearly for you it was. And I think the point needs to be made to the audience that, only you can decide what brave is. Only you can decide where your own personal challenges are. So, I don't think again, don't sort of judge your own version of bravery by anybody else's.
Yeah. I totally agree. And in the podcast episode, Mark and I talk about that in Shelf Impactors, about how, like for some people moving country is a big deal. For some people, just looking after their family is a big deal. Like there are different, like you say, agoraphobia, whatever it is that is something that you're scared of, that you're facing, or you're just willing to move beyond that step, like anything. It's those little list of things that you get for every morning going, I can't handle what's on my to-do list today. Well, if you just do one, actually you're going to, the one at the bottom is always the one you should do first. But yeah, like you say, those little deal breakers, like bravery is such a big word, but it doesn't need to be. We need to rethink it. We almost need to rebrand it and go like small acts that get you nearer toward your goal. That person who goes outside the house for the first time, that's a big deal. When they've done it 10 times, like it has to be once, and it only takes that once to make it 10 times.
So perhaps as we go, for you guys in the audience, if anybody is brave enough to share with us, what are the challenges that you're seeing at the moment? What are the, what are the things that you would love to do but aren't? What are the things that are keeping you awake at night, the challenges that you'd love to solve? And maybe we can, we can bring this conversation around into, eventually I want to get Lisa to talk about sort of, perhaps, more of a stepping stone to being able to solve those problems for yourselves. But it'd be great to have some real life examples of the things and the challenges that are occupying your mind at the moment. So again, anybody who's brave enough would love to hear your challenges too. So please feel free to pop them in the chat.
Yeah, do however small it is as well, because like now is the best time that everyone's kind of rethinking everything. Like it can be the tiniest thing, even reaching out. So I think a lot of opportunities, definitely a lot of my opportunities of I used to be really shy. I used to be scared of talking to people, but actually when you start opening up those questions, when you start having those conversations, no one's going to think any less of you for just reaching out. And I'm in a big favor of going. Like I got the opportunity to go and work in the UK after I'd worked in China, because pre-China I'd reached out to us. That's how I started doing strategy. Like I started talking to strategists. And it's kind of always talk to people. People are a lot more, there's a great Brené Brown talk on vulnerability. And it's okay, like reach out. People are human, we're all human. And especially right now that, we're all lacking connection. Well, like just talk to people. That's why we're here. So yeah, if you've got are there any questions in the box otherwise? Like I can't see any.
There aren't at the moment, but they tend to come a bit later on. I'm sure we'll have some before the webinar's over.
All good. So how to embrace bravery. So I suppose there are structures and there are strategies. It's all about us going, oh, you need to be more brave and everything, or you need to take more risks, or you need to show a bit more courage. But okay, what does that mean? And where do I start? So yeah, like we've said, like I think now is the best time there's also been a lot of I call them bold pivots. We see it in brand world quite a lot where people have switched up what they're doing. Everyone is now, if you made gin, you're now making hand sanitizer. That's not necessarily going to be the answer for everyone. And I think we've probably seen enough people who previously made, like underwear now making masks. But I do think it's time to think or evolve. We're all working from home now. How do we rethink that space? We're all lacking connection other than through a screen. How do we rethink that space? So the big thing for me is at the start of all this, and actually hopefully he's listening today, but I actually have what I call an accountability buddy. So a friend of mine that we said, look, what are we gonna do? And we'd meet up on a weekly basis and go, okay, there are things that you can do online, and there are also things that you can do in practice to define who you are, core values. I do this with clients in strategic workshops. And actually yesterday, and the protein company was a really good example of, they had all of these core values, but they weren't quite sure what they meant to other people. So there's a list, you can Google it online, like what are my core values? And you can have a list of like 300 words, and you can maybe pick 5 of them that you go, they feel like they resonate with me the most. And then understand, like these are mine or some of mine on the bottom of this sheet here. And actually understanding what you stand for makes it so much easier. So for me to take a risk, actually it became more about, I have to try. Like I am a no regrets person. So one of my things is I don't regret anything. And if you choose not to take something, or you choose not to take an opportunity, then there's a reason you've done that. And that's why I talk about gut feeling. So I think defining your core values or what you stand for is just a really great topic and a really great skill. Ikigai as well is a buzzword that everyone will have heard at the moment. It's where everyone's doing now. What am I here for? What is my purpose? Which is all well and good, but you also need to understand how that, like, why do people need it? Why do they need you? And how do you earn money from it? Because also at the end of the day, we need to, going back to Maslow, we need to satisfy that. I need to be financially stable, secure, and safe before I even reach the top. So Google Ikigai, have a look at your core values and work with someone to define what they are.
Lisa, how do you spell that? I'll just pop it in the chat.
IKI.
Yeah.
GAI.
Okay.
There's loads of there's YouTube talks and stuff on it as well. But actually, do you know what? Just for an exercise, it gets you to think differently. And then if you compare it with other people, it's just a nice philosophy of like, gets you to think about what you're good at. And the reason I've survived 20 years in the brand and design world is because I just love it. I love helping other people. I love working with other people and kind of taking perceptions and making people think differently. Like I like it when people talk to me and they're not quite what you expect them to be. Changing perceptions is great, and now's a great time to change perceptions with whatever you do. So I've put some practical bravery tips on a little slide here. So the first thing that I think everyone should do, and like I said, just feedback, like if people have got like questions going like, oh my goodness, I can't cope right now. The biggest thing is putting a stop to self-limiting beliefs. So disregard the pandemic, how many of us went, I can't do that because I'm too old to try doing that. I don't have the skill set to do that. Well, there are ways around it. Whatever, in fact, write it on a sheet of paper now or today. Why can't you do the thing that you want to do? What's stopping you? And we were all told, yeah, like you're too old to start this, or I'm not good enough. I'm not whatever enough. And they're just self-limiting beliefs. Like, what if you did? How?
Lisa, just to dig down on that concept a little bit, because I think all of us it's natural to have self-limiting beliefs, right? Some more than others. I know I do. There's a very well-known concept, in business called imposter syndrome,
yep.
right? Which is, people not believing that they can, live up to the standards of those around them in similar roles. And that's certainly something I've experienced. But having said that, it's easy to say, put a stop to self-limiting beliefs. It's really difficult to do.
Yes.
Do you have any ways or techniques or strategies that the audience can use to sort of help them begin to get past that?
Yeah, look, it helps. It's all about who you surround yourself with, I think. Which ultimately, if you're in the freelance space, is easier because you don't have to go into a business necessarily every day and deal with the politics, which can sometimes grind it out of you. Like, I definitely found that whenever I'd left an agency, I kind of felt like one or two where you've gone like, I don't even know if I can do what I do. But ultimately, the people you surround yourself with. So yeah, surround yourself with networks, join meetup groups, because you'll find other people. I'm all about, like, I agree. Like, I also have self-limiting beliefs, like, I don't think I can do it. I'm not sure I'm good enough. And imposter syndrome is like it's the topic of the moment, isn't it? But I would say surround yourself with people that are also, optimism is one of mine. So surround yourself with good friends who also believe in you. Like, also take time out. Like, I never used to be like, oh, I'm not into mindfulness. Like, do you know what? Take time out. Go out there and just kind of see that what is a big deal to you. We often dress it up in our head, and it's not that big on the grandest scheme of things. But definitely friend network. Be careful who you surround yourself with. I'm all about confidence without ego as well. So there's also a thing about imposter syndrome that I actually don't ever want to think I'm too good at what I do. Like, I'm good at what I do and I love what I do, but there's still more to learn. So keep learning. You'll also learn from other people.
There's a great point actually from Gerald in the chat, and I'll just, given that we're on the topic, and he says, more to the point, how can one identify one's limiting belief, especially when they can be so subtle in your unconscious? Which is a great question. Like, you might not even be aware that you have a self-limiting belief. It might just be something that you accept and don't question.
Yeah, I think I definitely work with professional people in terms of, or even people who can think differently. Like, I do that quite a lot. Even with clients I work with, you kind of go like, okay, first define the goal. So like, it might say you've got this belief, but where are you trying to reach? Because often if you define where you're trying to reach, or what you would like, if you didn't have any limitations, where would you want to get to, and what would be your goal? And it can be small, like, it doesn't have to be big, like we said with agoraphobia story. But yeah, it's very difficult in terms of, like, for me, I had ones that came from like a background or a history. If I'd stayed living where I was from, there's sort of a belief of like, this is what you do, this is the expectation. So I think sometimes removing yourself from the situation, I realized that's not easy for everyone to do. But I guess first knowing if you've mentioned you've got a subconscious belief that whether it's you're not good enough, or or you're too old, or whatever it is that is your belief, or maybe it's even because, like, maybe I'm a girl and I can't get into a space because it's dominated by men, and it's just subconsciously. But I think you obviously, if you've mentioned that it's a subconscious limiting belief, you know what it is. And I think write it down. The more you write things down, the more it becomes real. And then whether you share that to anyone, it doesn't matter. Have a vision board. Have a board that you show that is just for you. Like, where do I want to go? No time limits. If nothing was a barrier, what do you want to achieve? And that makes the belief that's the limiting belief a lot easier to kind of break down into small chunks.
I think there's just perhaps two more things I might add to that from a personal perspective. I'm not a vision board type of person. That's just me. But I find taking one step can often be the thing. You have an idea, you have a goal, I find that I spend, my first thing is researching it. And I get to the point where I know that I'm reading the same things over and over and over again. And I've researched it and researched it and researched it until I can read no more. And then it's just about taking that first step.
But Oliver, what if the research told you it wasn't a good idea, but deep down it's something that you really want to do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I get comfort in knowledge. From that perspective. So I know that I am more confident and less likely to give up if I feel that I have some, at least basic knowledge of what's going to happen. So I found just taking that first step, and even if that first step is, catastrophic in terms of being a step closer to your goal, catastrophic is probably the one word. I find that you learn so much from just taking that first step. It may mean that you end up redefining your goal. It may end up realizing that actually what I thought it was isn't that. But you have that, all of a sudden you have that completely different perspective on what it is you were thinking about. So sometimes, guys, just taking that first step can make a lot of difference.
I agree. That's that kind of start small. It's a series of small acts that gets you towards your goal and kind of work backwards. But yeah, like I think writing things down makes them tangible. Like, just whether it's on a notebook or whatever it is, like I have scribbles all over the place, but that's more because I'm a strategist and I'm constantly thinking and absorbing information. And, we live in a world now that's quite driven by data. So one thing on the back of that, Oliver, you're someone, you will have probably known that from doing your core values and going the security for you comes in knowledge. And yes, it does. We're in a situation now where we're driven very much by data, but I also do believe there's a certain emotive capacity that if something feels right, you need to learn to trust that gut instinct. There's a really great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink, who talks a lot about training that gut instinct. But I think it helps to know what you stand for.
It does. Awesome. Sorry, I've derailed you there. I'll let you get back to slide.
All good. So like I said, know your values. Like, strong foundations make you braver or make you take risks more often. So again, like I said, like even if everyone was saying like it's not a good idea to go to China or it's not a good idea to do this, I knew that if I'd not taken it, I would have regretted it. It might not work out. Failing a few times, failing is great. Like, I know everyone fears failure, but you learn from it. Like, I learned so much in going to China, and even from a personal level, like I was really sick, and knowing how to cope with that knows that you can survive it. Once you survive something, down the track you can survive other things. Someone asked me recently on the podcast, does age make you braver or less brave? Do you get more scared as you get older? And I think that's even a great question, because yes, 20-year-old Lisa probably would have taken more risks, but it's who I am. I still take them now. I just probably consider more about the people around me. And I suppose some people on this forum would also have the people around you, even family, they're also going to be different factors in making that decision. So I would say build resilience more than don't fear failure. We fail a lot of times. It makes you stronger, better, you learn from it. Even in your own business, a lot of people right now are going what am I, am I in the right thing? Well, do you know what? Write it down. What would you like to achieve? Who are you? What do you stand for? It's a great exercise to do. And also be kind to yourself. I know whoever popped in the chat box about if you've got self-limiting beliefs that have been inherently built into you over time, be kind to yourself. Actually allow yourself the time out. Especially right now, everyone's kind of pushing through, and there's a lot more pressure. I actually listened to a podcast today, someone was saying they miss being tired because they're literally 10 meters away from their bed and they have all these different deal breakers. So they almost miss that pressure of, I love what I do, so I can't imagine but there are times when you go I've had so much on, it's the weekend, and people are missing that because it feels like we're stuck in Groundhog Day. And it helps if you're a visionary person to go, it's not always going to be like this. Find strategies to cope. So be kind to yourself. And I've put in there, trust your gut, unless you're Oliver, and then you can just go out and research it like crazy first, and then trust your gut. And even into get one of the key tips, and I was always against people going do you really need a coach or a mentor? You're effectively coaching in the brand space. I coach and help other people. Why would I need a coach or a mentor? But actually throughout at the moment, and about 10 months ago, like I said, a friend and I buddied up. If you can't afford a mentor or a coach, get someone that you're accountable to. Every week we have a call to go, what's on for this week? What do we want to achieve this week? And it's also, that's about being kind to yourself as well, and just having almost a teammate can be in different areas. What am I going to do this week? It makes you feel like you've achieved something, because the next week you catch up and go, I did this.
I think that's an interesting one. We've had a number of conversations on these Freelance Legends webinars about the value or lack thereof of coaches or business coaches or mentors.
Yeah.
And it's a seriously polarizing thing. There's very little mid-ground. There are some people that have found that person that really worked for them. And there's some people that have tried it and feel that it's a complete waste of time and that they've wasted, a lot of time, effort and money on something that hasn't really delivered anything for them. So it is horses for courses, but I like the idea of an accountability buddy. Maybe that's definitely something that you guys could try if sort of the idea of that whole sort of formalization of a mentor or business coach, maybe, it could just be another freelancer. And, it's an opportunity to have a coffee and talk shop every now and again. Yeah.
Even in terms of bravery, creating opportunities about even networking with people on LinkedIn. So to that point, like, I'm not someone who, I don't need a coach. I don't believe a coach. I don't have a coach now. I have an accountability buddy. But actually the people who do you look up to and why do you look up to them? And it doesn't have to be in that space. So I've got people, part of my LinkedIn, also people in the work world, and even like in an everyday world that I look up to and see as your mentors. Talk to people, reach out to them, and that sometimes can fuel your fire. Like, I love talking to people who are excited about, like yesterday was a great example. The guys that I presented as brand strategy to, they are really passionate about what they do. And sitting in their office for a couple of days a week for the past month or so has allowed me to see that culture and go, you're not embracing this as a brand, here's how we could. I love people who are excited about what they do. And so if you find out that, connect with other people, they don't even have to be in the same industry. They just have to perhaps share your values. And they can become your mentors. It's not about paying someone to be a coach, because there's also a thing of once you're paying someone, it can become a little bit like more, it becomes a different kind of restriction. I'm not someone who has a personal trainer at the gym because I don't like being told what to do at the gym. So I kind of feel a bit like that in the business world.
Well, there's exactly the opposite. I've had the same personal trainer for the last 8 years. Again, I found a good one that works for me, and she's kept me accountable and kept me going back to the gym even when I didn't want to. And sometimes I think that it's a real luxury and probably way too expensive, but I've been going to the gym for 8 years and it's done wonders for my mental and physical health. So there you go. Horses for courses. Yeah,
when you find the people that you connect with, it's brilliant, isn't it? And that's why I do believe, like, I had to overcome my shyness to reach out and connect with people, because I have some amazing people in my network now, and I have some great friends. And like you say, like, when you get that connection or that click, like, it's awesome, and it keeps you going. It sticks at it. So I think just reach out, be brave enough to reach out, talk to other people, join meetup groups as well, because you'll find people that way.
So just before you carry on to this slide, just to let everybody know that we'll send around Lisa's slides with these resources information to you all with the recording next week. Again, we're probably going to be moving into questions soon. Sam, I know there's a question sitting there that we're going to answer for you shortly. So guys, we'd love to hear what are some of the things that you're trying to achieve. We'd love to hear some examples of risks that you've taken that have worked out for you, some success stories as well. We'd love to be able to discuss those in sort of Q&A before the end of the webinar. So please pop your questions in chat. If you're watching on Facebook Live, we're monitoring the Facebook Live feed as well. So please feel free to put those in. So we'll send all that around. Anyway, Lisa, off you go.
I'd be interested to know as well, like, has anyone taken any of the risks or done things that they actually regret? Because I've never actually spoken to anyone who said, I wish I'd never done that at all. The fact that you've done it, like, even for me, like, even moving country and being the other side of the world to your family, and you've done that too, Oliver, like, that's a risk, like, you're the other side of the world to your family, and they probably don't understand that, and that's a risk that you take. But I don't think you've probably been worse off if you just sat there going, maybe I should have done that. So I'd be interested to hear if anyone's done something that they do regret. It's always changeable as well. I think things are always changeable.
Awesome. Well, it will be interesting to see. If we can't get anybody to give us an example of a risk they've taken that succeeded, we're probably going to struggle to get an example of a risk they've taken that hasn't. So come on, guys, who's brave enough to share some info with us before the end of the webinar?
I've just got a little slider to go, like, be bold, be brave, but also be you. So there's also that one thing, like, not everyone wants to be out in the forefront. Like, not everyone wants to be doing talks or webinars, or, you know, not everyone wants to change the world. And that's okay. Knowing your core values and what your goal is the biggest deal. And your goals change over time as well. Like, it's also brave to go, like, that was what I wanted. What I wanted 5 years ago is completely different to what I want now. And that's okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, great slides, and thanks, Lisa. To Sam's question, we'll ask that now, because this is something you mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. In fact, you emailed me overnight with these slides late at night, and one of the things that you shared with me that you didn't have to was that you were feeling nervous.
Yep.
And you've told me that a couple of times, that, you know, even though you come across as very confident and enthusiastic, that perhaps that's a bit of a front. So Sam asks, you know, how do you get over the fear of getting on camera and putting content out there?
I think it's better out than the more you do it, the easier it gets. I mean, look, I've presented workshops and things to clients, and I guess from being an agency side, I'm used to talking and presenting to people, but I'm scared every single time. Like, I actually never want to lose it, because even presenting work yesterday, like, I produced the work, I'd done the whole strategy, I had all the content that was there to back it up. I'm not selling me, I'm selling stuff. But it's like the rush of someone jumping off the side of a mountain. Like, you get that rush, that fear, because when you get the other side of it, it feels amazing. When that other person, and you've made their day, that feels amazing. It's no different to taking groceries around to, like, whether you take groceries around to a neighbor because they're too scared to go outside. The look on their face when you knock up at that, you're like, I don't know if I want to bother someone. When they open that door and you've made their day, that makes it all worthwhile. So I guess whenever you're not sure or you're nervous, I would say before this, I went out and got a coffee. I need to remove myself from the space of what I'm going to do, at least for 10 minutes before I do it. And I know some people who have to prepare right up until the moment that they talk, but I don't. Like, we did a trial run yesterday, and if you'd have said to me, we're going to narrate word for word what we're going to do, like, I'm not very good at narrating stuff. I feel like it should organically flow for me. But I know some people who have to do several trial runs to know exactly what they're going to go is exactly on script. Like, that's not me. It's not who I am. Like, I like to allow a bit of fluidity. But everyone's different. And until you know yourself, like, we might say to you, we might recommend that you take time out before you do public speaking or before you do any talks. The hardest thing is, like, just reach out to someone and commit to them to do it. Like,
and take that first step. I mean, we're about 18 months into these webinars. I had no idea 18 months ago whether they were going to work. And still here you are, guys, some of you month in, month out that tune in to listen to the guests that we have on and to what we had to say. And I had no idea that anybody was going to turn up or that anybody would be interested. And you know, I just did the first one, and here we are 18 months later. So Sam, I definitely tell you, you know, that just do the first thing and see how it goes. And, you know, you've even followed up with a comment that says the only thing you regret is not starting a business sooner. And I'd say that if you've got the idea and you want to get content out there, do it. Yeah. And I reckon that you'll be telling yourself in a few months or weeks' time, the only thing I regret is not starting this podcast or not starting this webinar series sooner. 100%.
Yeah. And it's a real accolade to say that it's been going that long, because after 6 months, most people give up. So I'm a big believer in just, like, it doesn't always have to be perfect. Just put something out there. You can shape it down the line. You can constantly keep learning and working on it. Just put something out. Like, I started the podcast. In fact, a friend of mine interviewed me for the podcast 4 or 5 years ago, and I was so nervous, and he interviewed me, and now I'm a co-host on it. So it's that first step that led me down the line. Now I love it, and I love it because other people enjoy listening to it. So if you've got content you're putting out, realize that people will then start to like you, for like, they will just love the fact that you're out there. Watch, if you look through the notes when Oliver sends these out, there's a TED talk from Brené Brown on vulnerability. It's really good. I was always a bit like, I don't want to get I don't get emotional, like I'm a tough cookie. But actually, it teaches you that just showing that you're human really helps. Put the content out, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
Totally agree. And we've got some great comments now from Michelle on the Facebook Live. Said, you know, she one of the things she A risk she took that worked for her was going freelance after being in a regular office job, one of her best decisions. We've got Melissa, who says she worked in other countries and now she started her own graphic design business. She says, I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing, but I don't regret anything, which is fantastic. Gerald says, he started a business which he sees as good, but of course there's a price there to the family. So obviously there's, a work-life balance equation there that you've got to try and get as right as you can. Not always easy. Ashley's talking about a risk. Was going to a festival with somebody she met twice, and now we're best friends. I felt brave overcoming a fear to hang out with somebody I didn't know and just put myself out there. Well, yeah, again, perfect example of something that to some people, I could just hang out with anybody. And for other people, meeting new people or, doing that kind of thing is really frightening and takes an enormous amount of self-control to get over. And yeah, so that's fantastic. So guys, are there any more questions for Lisa right now? We've got a number of you making comments. Thanks for getting involved. Any more questions that we have? It doesn't look like there are. So